We're good to go?
Yes.
All right. Thank you for working on that and getting us set up. Well, good morning. I'd like to call this April 4th, 2023 Ottawa County Planning and Policy Committee meeting to order. Our first item on the agenda is public comment. Please address your comments to the chair, and you have 3 minutes. Do we have anybody willing to come up? Welcome.
My name's Dave Barnowski, and I vote in Port Sheldon Township. And I watched David Kallman make false accusations in court about a former commission chair and the current county clerk. When he did that, he was speaking for all of you. And I know it's not true. And there's 3 members of your commission who also know it's not true. And if you had spoken to them, you would have known it's not true. Mr. Moss watched them do it as well. He was sitting right next to him when he did it. Are you okay with that? Do I have to ask you to make a policy to only have your lawyers speak the truth in court? Because even if you had a policy, would you follow it? Did any of you know in advance that's what was going to happen? I challenge each of you to find a reputable journalist and decry making false accusations in court. If you don't, you should not be surprised to find that as the first item on your recall petition. You also owe an apology to Matt Fenske and to Justin Roebuck, because neither of them did what your attorney said they did. You also owe an apology to all of your constituents.
Good morning.
Good morning, Teresa White, Robinson Township. I would like to express my excitement about this important committee, this Planning and Policy Committee. To be able to attend and observe this process and procedure of what initiatives and the goals of the new board and Ottawa County are moving forward. Example, things like county strategic planning, land use, infrastructure needs, agriculture and conservation. I'm hopeful to see these and more within this standing committee. Thank you to Administrator Gibbs for working on bringing to us citizens an effective and efficient style of government for Ottawa County. And when we are successful, maybe other counties will want to emulate our process also. Again, thank you for all your hard work.
Good morning.
Good morning, Dina Arner, Holland Township. I doubt any county is going to want to follow our example of having board members who support their attorney lying in court, but that's not what I came here to talk about. I came here to talk about agenda item number 3, to rescind and forward to the full board the board's policy on the ability to speak on important issues. Once again, it speaks to the arrogance of this board that you think that you have powers that you do not have. The state, oh, there you go, smirking again, Joe. I knew I could count on you. The state is very explicit on what your scope of practice is. And as usual, you are trying to operate outside your lane. If you would just operate inside your lane, you could do things like address the fiscal implications of your many policies, such as hiring attorneys that charge exorbitant fees, racking up lawsuits every other day that will allow them to charge us, the taxpayers, to defend the indefensible. The majority of the county did not vote for you. I know that's a revelation that you don't want to hear. Lots of people didn't bother voting because they'd been lulled into a sense of complacency by years of competent board of commission activity. And they're being woken up by your incompetence time and time again. And you do not speak for the majority of the people in this county. And when you attempt to do so with actions that we can see in the offing with agenda item 3, you embarrass yourselves and you embarrass this county. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning. Karen Obitz, Spring Lake. I also wish to rise to speak to agenda item number 3. As I reviewed the agenda for this committee meeting, that was the item that leaped out at me. Although I don't have a crystal ball, ever since Joe Moss publicly stated his intention upon assuming a seat on this board to pass a resolution declaring Ottawa a Second Amendment sanctuary county, I've been watching for signs that the board is positioning itself, excuse me, to realize that goal. I've simultaneously been tracking news stories about the gun safety bills currently making their way through our state legislature. Although these bills have sparked an uproar from the usual suspects, the National Rifle Association and some Republican politicians, a Bridge, Michigan reporter who recently conducted interviews with 10 gun owners in Michigan's gun belt, that stretch of 7 counties roughly along the 45th parallel, found little resistance to these measures and in some cases support. This should be no surprise, seeing that polls, including a national poll of gun owners, have consistently shown support for passage of gun safety laws such as those under review in Lansing, which means that those opposed to such measures are out of step with prevailing opinion. In this Bridge article, the reporter also referenced the Second Amendment sanctuary movement in Michigan and stated that these resolutions are not legally binding since county commissioners can't direct sheriffs or judges on what laws to enforce. Rather, they serve primarily as a means of signaling a protest against gun safety laws. So, if this board is moving in the direction of removing any policy-related obstacles to prevent it from passing a similar resolution, its resolution too would be toothless, and its only purpose to send a signal to certain supporters and to do so with complete disregard for its divisive nature. It also strikes me as the height of hypocrisy and inconsistency in governing philosophy to go to great pains to amend the board's rules to allow the passage of a resolution that thumbs its nose at state laws. And it betrays a preference for the Second Amendment over the First, because how else could I understand it to be seen as essential for the board to speak as a whole on a toothless resolution, while it seeks to squelch the ability of individual commissioners to speak in an open comments session at board meetings. I urge the board to refrain from passing resolutions outside the legislative authority provided by state statutes, particularly one that sends a dangerous and anti-democratic message that rules or laws that don't advance the views and policy preferences of the majority of its members may be ignored. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay. I'd just like to acknowledge our participant, Commissioner Zylstra, is with us online this morning.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Roger.
Hey, Commissioner Zylstra, can you share with us where you're calling in from?
I am calling from Bryce Canyon, Arizona.
Wonderful.
No, sorry, Utah. Sorry about that. Been in so many states recently. Sorry, Bryce Canyon, yes.
It's somewhere sunnier and warmer than where we are at the
A little bit. We got a little bit of snow today, but it's all right.
You're sure it's not New Mexico?
It's not New Mexico.
Okay.
All right. Moving along, do we have a motion for the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion and support. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Agenda is approved. Next item is our consent resolution. There's really just the one item, which is the approval of our minutes from March 7th. Is there a motion?
I move to approve the consent resolution.
Moved by
Second.
Commissioner Moss,
Second.
second by Commissioner Curran. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. Our first action item today, we have suggested motion for the Ottawa Sands Treehouse bid and contract. A suggested motion to accept and forward to the Board of Commissioners a bid from Apex Contractors for the construction of the Ottawa Sands tree houses at a cost of $1,667,000. I believe we have Parks Department Representative Kurt Tahar with us today.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
Second.
All right. So moving into the comments.
Yeah, good morning. Yes, my name is Kurt Terhar and I'm the coordinator of park planning and development. And I'm standing in for Director Shamblin, who is also, I think, in a little bit of warmer spot this morning. So yes, this is the second contract out of what we think will be 4 construction contracts to implement the first phase of improvements at Ottawa Sands. If you're not familiar with Ottawa Sands, this is a 345-acre parcel in Ferrysburg, kind of north of Grand Haven. We purchased it in 2 pieces in 2018 and 2019. In 2020, we did a master plan that really took a whole year to find out exactly what we wanted to do with it. And then at that time, we really didn't have many funds to implement what we were hoping to do. But in 2021, we received 2 private donation gifts totaling almost $3.5 million that really got us going into thinking we could do a really nice project to make this site more accessible. If you've been there, it's a beautiful site. People love it, but you park in a little gravel parking lot at the entry area and you walk in, and if you try to walk around the lake, it's a tough go, especially if you're a little older or toting kids along and that kind of thing. So what we're really trying to do is do some things that make this site more accessible for everyone. The donors who gave the $3.5 million were interested in the camping that we had proposed there. Now, this is not RV camping, it's unique types of camping. So we're going to have tent sites, we're going to have yurt tents, and we're going to have what is part of this contract, which are tree houses. So these are raised cabins. So they're in the treetops, providing a really unique experience for park visitors. So these are overnight accommodations. And we really think it's going to be a unique and a great experience in the park. So yes, so Apex Contractors is who gave us the low bid. We only had 2 bids. I don't know exactly why that was. It was well advertised through the county's ways they advertise it. It was advertised publicly in the construction plan rooms and so forth. But we did get two good bidders. Pshaw Builders is a local builder in Grand Haven, very reputable. Apex Contractors is someone who's worked with us for many years. They're one of our favorite contractors, providing reasonable prices and good quality work. They also happen to be the contractor who's already doing the first construction contract on the site. So it makes perfect sense that they would continue to complete this project along with the other work that they're doing. So we're going for 2024, spring of 2024 to have this open. And we would really like to see this project move along. Happy to answer questions if you have them.
Mr. Bergman?
So Kurt, there's one more project you said that there's coming later?
There's probably 2 other construction,
more?
2 more. So like I said, these first 2 focus on the campground project, which is the campground itself, plus a lot of the support facilities, a new entrance drive, all the utilities we need. That's a great project, but it doesn't provide really what we think is most people want, is a nice parking lot and a nice paved trail around the lake and a modern restroom. That would be the next 2 sub phases of this phase
Those
1.
won't be necessarily ready by the spring of next year.
It's going to be tight. Yes,
Okay.
those rely
That
on.
was my basic question.
Yes. We received some additional grant funding for those projects, but those grants haven't even been fully appropriated yet. So that may come a little bit later. Yes.
So I'm glad to see that you're doing something about the trails, because I agree that the trails, I think I mentioned to you before.
Yeah.
By the time you go around there, if your knees are bothering you at all, they're bothering you a lot by the time you get back.
You are exactly right.
Yeah, thanks.
So yes, so the paved trail should be good for everyone. People who have mobility issues, people who want to bring a stroller around there, just everybody should benefit from that.
Commissioner Evil?
Yes, I had a couple of people ask me about the tree houses. Can you, expound on that? What does it mean? Is it, do you pick a tree or is it a fake tree or?
No, so we're calling them tree houses because they're placed in a grove of trees and raised up. They aren't actually connected to the trees. We thought this was a better way to do it. So they're essentially on stilts. And then you have boardwalks and walkways that will get you up to them. So they are all fully accessible, right? So you don't have to use stairs to get up to them. So we think it's going to be available to
And they'll
everyone.
have power, electricity and.
They have power and electricity. One of them, the biggest one, which we're saying sleep 6, actually has a restroom in it. So flush toilets and all that. The other ones do not, right? So you have to go to the common restroom to use it there.
Okay, because they were imagining a tree house like they built in the backyard.
You're right. Yeah. So it'll feel like that because it's in a grove of trees and you're going to be up kind of in the branches.
Thank you.
Commissioner Cosby?
I'm just curious about the costs for rental and then will it help with like maintenance?
Yes, so
Your maintenance costs.
I get that a lot. We haven't exactly
quite
determined the rental rate for them. We've done some research on comparable facilities around the state, and that will be determined soon here. But yes, we intend that these will be kind of self-sustaining in that way, because they will be serviced. We're calling it outfitted camping. So they will have beds and things like that. We haven't exactly determined everything that will be in there. But yes, the intent is that they would sustain themselves that way.
So if you live within the county, do you think we'll get a discounted rate?
That could very well be.
Just a thought.
That could very well be. We provide discounts for our parking permits, and and for our rental of other facilities. So I think that could easily be a discount for county residents. Yeah.
Thank you.
Commissioner Evil?
Yeah, one more question that they asked me. Are there other parks or places that have done this before or are we the first?
We're not the first, but
Bummer.
first around here. There are some up by Traverse City. There's a new one, I think, in Ionia. So it's becoming a thing. When we were designing it, we actually went and visited a group of them in Ohio, which I think is maybe the closest thing to what we have, a little grouping of them. So it's pretty unique. Same thing with the yurts. They're around. If you go out west, there are yurt campgrounds. There's some in the UP, but around here, no, these are pretty unique.
Go ahead,
Yeah, Commissioner Bonema.
Commissioner Bonham.
Good morning. Thank you for answering questions. I just wanted to acknowledge the generosity of the donor. That this is quite a gift. It's a tremendous gift to the community. So I just wanted to say thank you to them for investing in our county and our community like this. It's extraordinary.
Yeah, it really is. And maybe there's no secret about this. This is the Idema Family Foundation who was given that. So you hear that name around. The Idema Explorers Trail is our paved trailway network that we're building along the Grand River. They were the big initial donor for that. They've donated to the suspension bridge at Grand Ravines Park. We have a tree house at Grand Ravines Park that's being constructed right now. And yeah, they've been super generous. Evidently, we're doing something right because they keep coming to us asking if there's another project that they might be interested in. And we'll keep trying to find them for them. So, yeah.
Anyone else? I just had a couple of questions with the lake. Is that the intent to kind of maintain that sort of the rustic kind of rural, or will there be like kayaking and that type of activity? Do you anticipate?
Yeah, right now we're not allowing activities in there. If you're aware, right, there's no kayaking, there's no swimming, there's catch and release fishing. We're doing quite a bit of research on this lake to see what it can support. Originally, we thought, oh, this thing is so pristine that we don't want hardly anything happening into it. It's not really that way. It looks super, it's beautiful, clean, but it's not as pristine as you might think it is. So we're a little less worried about activities happening there. We are looking, I didn't mention, concurrently with this, right now, we're working on projects to improve the habitat in the lake. Like I said, it's beautiful. It does have some fish, but it isn't really as healthy as you would hope. So we're doing some things to make that. But I would anticipate that the fishing regulations would eventually change and we would allow some of those other activities on there.
I know when I visited, we had the ability to see some of the bald eagles.
Yeah.
And that was really exciting.
Yep.
And it seemed like at that time too, there was a lot of, don't make a lot of noise, be kind of quiet, stay on the path kind of thing. And I imagine, with the improvements, there's going to be a lot more folks drawn to the location.
There will. I would say the master plan worked really hard to make it so these uses are compatible. The lake itself is going to stay pretty much the same. The stuff that we're talking on now is kind of on the east side of the site and buffered from a lot of that. So we think we can accommodate both types of uses and maintain what people really like, right? It's a beautiful kind of, you don't even realize you're in Ottawa County anymore. You can't see any development around it. It's beautiful that way. And yes, the wildlife is really interesting here. I use this stat a lot. Our birders have been out there, and on one visit, there are 7 types of woodpeckers in Michigan. They saw all 7 types at the site in one walk. So there's some interesting things like that about the site.
Okay. Well, thank you for addressing our questions. I believe we're probably ready to take a roll call vote.
Perfect. Mr. Moss,
Yes.
Mrs. Curran,
Yes.
Miss Cosby,
Yes.
Mr. Bonema,
Yes.
Mrs. Rhodey,
Yes.
Mrs. Minema,
Yes.
Mrs. Ebel,
Yes.
Mr. Bergman,
Yes.
Mr. Belknap.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up on our agenda is a motion to approve to forward to the Board of Commissioners a request from our Sheriff's Office to allow Crisis Aid International to occupy the designated office space at the Fillmore Complex. Is there any motion?
I'll
Anyone
make
like
that motion, or go ahead, support Roger Bergman.
Okay, so we have a motion and support, and we have Sheriff Kemper with us. Thank you for the presentation last week.
Yes, thank you for allowing us to come in and present. And again, good morning, Commissioners. So again, the office space that we're requesting. First, let me back up because you did mention to me last week. I have had overwhelming comments from our citizens and the support. You may have seen some news articles that were ran on this. Again, feel that it is a need. And one question that I had a lot is, does this replace the Children's Advocacy Center? And it does not. It does not interfere with that. The two will work separate of each other. Referrals have already been made from the Children's Advocacy Center into Crisis Aid. But again, the Children's Advocacy Center, and this is something too, I think as a board, talking with the director, Darcy Fluharty, is that we would like to get the board down to the Children's Advocacy Center kind of for a lunch and learn or a quick tour of that facility so you can see exactly what's done there. And I know some of you already have a background in that, but I think it's really neat and important for you to see what happens at the Children's Advocacy Center. So tying this program in, again, this is another resource to our families. Again, I'll use this example. This one really shocked me in my 40+ years of law enforcement. Last week, at the end of the week, we dealt with a 6-year-old who had a cell phone that had images of herself on that cell phone. So again, our detectives are working to see if anything's been transmitted. But again, if there's no criminal activity there, this is an opportunity for Crisis Aid International to maybe come in and mentor or work with that family or give them some resources. So again, I know technology is great, but technology is dangerous also. So again, we're looking forward to it. The space that they would like to occupy is actually just an old lobby area, very small space right outside the door behind you here. They are going to outfit that completely. Again, like I mentioned last week, the lights are already on, the air and the heating's on. That space has not been used in years. And again, they will totally outfit it, supply their own supplies, their own computers and everything. There is a memo of understanding that has been written up. I gave a copy to Mr. Jordan yesterday to ask him to also review that. If there's any changes that need to be made, we can do that between now and the final board meeting also. So again, I do appreciate the board very much for your support on this. And again, I think community-wide and for victims and mentoring, it is going to be, I think, a good tool for us in our community.
Are there any questions for Sheriff Kemker?
I'm looking forward to seeing how this works as far as process flow is concerned with the Children's Advocacy Center, and then also Crisis Aid International.
Yes, and again, this program, as we mentioned last week, has been up and running in Kent County for some time now. And again, the law enforcement executives that I've talked over there feel the program is running very smoothly. We have asked for stats to be given to us so we can report back. But again, this does not replace the Children's Advocacy Center when it comes to the forensic interviewing and the physical exams and all of that. So again, yes, I'm looking forward to it. And I think we can get the two to definitely work together as it has in Kent County very successfully. And my understanding is that also now the Kent County Sheriff's Office is looking at a second advocate over there. One's at Wyoming Police Department now. I did receive a question, that this is a out-of-state Crisis Aid International, but they are growing. They hope to grow more into Michigan. So they are based here in Michigan also, and they're expanding down into Florida now also. Again, it's a topic that's out there. It's a topic that none of us like, but it's there, and it's our obligation, I think, to help and deal with it.
Absolutely.
Commissioner Rhodey?
Not really a question, but I just wanted to thank you again for bringing this forward and meeting the needs of our kids and our families. I really appreciate the fact that they wrap around entire families. So thank you for that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, again, I tell you, I've been in law enforcement a long time, and when you start looking at the dynamics of things and the dynamics of family situations, it's the breakdown of the family a lot of times. And I know we're in a different world. Over the last 10, 15 years, that family dynamic just doesn't seem to be there all the time. But I want to thank each and every one of you here on the board too for your support in this as we move forward with this. And again, I think it's going to be an excellent service to our citizens here for our county.
Anyone else? Commissioner Zalstra, do you have any questions?
No, I just want to echo what Commissioner Rhodey says and appreciate the sheriff for bringing this forward.
All right. With that, I believe we're ready to vote on this. So all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you. So last item for action at this meeting is the suggested motion of the board resolutions policy. Motion to rescind and forward to the Board of Commissioners the board resolution policy established by the prior board, which limited the board's ability to speak on important issues. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Any dialogue, any questions?
Yes. First of all, I'd like to say I'm appalled by the verbiage of this motion because this is about as far from the truth as possible. This commission has put forward so many untruths in the past, and this is another one of them. We did not limit, as this says, the ability to speak on important issues. And I'll just leave it with that, because otherwise I would get pretty angry and disgusted with the group here that is appalling by bringing up a motion like this, saying that we did not allow for this kind of interaction.
Okay. Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Rhodey?
Yes, so I just want to point out there have been a few things that we've seen recently that this policy would prohibit us from taking action on. Just a couple examples. One is, I know we've all received probably quite a few emails from different counties around the state in regards to resolutions concerning the MAC board and congratulating them on their 125 years of service around the state. That would be an example of the kind of thing that our board does not have authority over. And so taking up a resolution to congratulate them on their service would violate this policy. Another example would be the resolution on women's history that was brought to us recently. Women's history is not something that the board has authority over. We can't control people's gender, and we can't control history. And so that would be another item that we would not be able to speak into if this policy remained in effect. There has been a lot of discussion lately about wanting to increase the voices of commissioners. This is another way to do that. And I think, you know, we know that there are some important issues that we do want to speak into. And if we want to stay consistent with our policies, then this is a policy that that is no longer needed. And historically, when we look at when this policy was put in place, it was put in place about 2 months after the public was coming to the Board of Commissioners and asking them to sign a resolution to restore freedom to Ottawa County and to end, you know, the very restrictive things that were going on. And the board did not answer and sign that, even though 2,700 citizens in Ottawa County had signed that resolution. So appearances, I'm not saying it's factual, but appearances were that this policy went into effect, perhaps in a response to public pressure for that resolution to be passed. So that is the timing of when this policy went into effect.
Commissioner Moss?
Sure, I'll just add that one of the things that I know a number of people on this board have advocated for in the last couple of years is that citizens use their voice. I think it's great that the board also be able to use their voice in important issues, whether it's Second Amendment or parental rights or Constitution or whatever the board might take up.
Commissioner Zylstra, do you have any comments? Just wanted to.
Yeah, sure. I appreciate that, Commissioner Belknap. Yeah, I mean, as I recall, the policy was put in place to, you know, prevent resolutions that unnecessarily split the board, split our community. What Commissioner Rhodey says about the MAC, you know, those are resolutions I think we can all get behind, you know. So I think if this does pass, I hope we kind of continue the spirit of using resolutions to unite our community, unite the board, and not put resolutions up that are going to unnecessarily divide us, right? So I think that was the original purpose of it. And again, if we're going to go forward, that we pass resolutions that kind of serve to unite us all and not divide us. So thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. So we have a motion and a second. All in favor of passing this, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No. Okay. Believe the ayes have it. Our next item on the agenda is committee reports. Really only one item in the updated legislative issues. I'm going to look to Administrator Gibbs to cover this one.
Thank you, Chair Roger Bell. Normally, these are done by my deputy administrator. He is out this week, so I will cover these. As you know, we keep track of various pieces of legislation that are moving in Lansing. And in certain instances, the county takes a position on certain pieces of legislation. We try to be very narrowly focused in terms of things that actually have an impact on county operations or county revenue, as well as things that have a realistic chance of actually going somewhere. And so that does narrow the scope of the purview of things that the county typically takes position on. In your packet, you will see that there are items in yellow that have been updated since last time, and those have been added since the last items on there. So I'll focus on those. There's several items on the House side and that are related to property tax policy, as well as determining the value of properties. There's a proposed change to the way that the value of properties is determined, as well as a bill on land sales to foreign entities. Some of these we don't know a lot about yet in terms of where they're going. So they have TBD marked, and we will keep an eye on those as far as what kind of recommendation there might be to the board in terms of a position to take on those. Looking at the Senate side, there's a similar picture here. There's 3 new items there, one on electronic voting equipment, one on voter vehicle registration, which is recommended as support because we believe that would be positive in terms of revenue for the county. And there's one in terms of the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority having its purview increased to cover other areas of housing, that a neutral position is recommended. The Senate Fiscal Agency estimated in quote unquote indeterminate impacts on the state and local tax revenue. So for now, we're neutral on that. It looks like it does have a chance of passing. So those are the items that are there in the packet that we're taking a look at as far as legislative activity.
All right. Have any questions? Okay, hearing none. It's our second opportunity for public comment. Is there anyone who would like to address the committee?
Surprise. My name is Dave Barnoski. I vote in Port Sheldon Township, and as frequently happens, Commissioner Rohde's arguments seem disingenuous, bringing up relatively innocuous resolutions as examples of what your board resolutions policy might support. When the public came out in some strength last week, I believe it was, for speaking up for the rights of commissioners to speak, we were speaking up for the rights for individual commissioners to speak to each other in public. This resolutions policy will empower what I imagine to be a 6-5 majority to take the voices of the other 5 to add to their own and speak as if the entire commission is one. That's what I imagine this is about. If you have any genuine right or any genuine hope of keeping the board united, I hope you'll attach some sort of super majority, because I realize that trying to convince you to change your mind is not going to happen. You've got your 6 votes locked in. A super majority on that is the least you could do.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good morning, Commissioners. I'm Rebecca Patrick from Allendale Township, and I would also like to speak to the action on the rescission of the policy. I was holding my comments until now because I wanted to hear your discussion in the rationale for why this was on the agenda and the action that you took. And what I heard, or what I think I heard, were 2 things. One was that you had a concern that this policy would limit what the commission could do. And the second one was that it would not allow you to do some types of honorary acknowledgements that are often done by means of resolution. Regarding the argument about limiting what the commission can do, that's what policies do. They limit you. And they're there for a reason, because we often need to limit ourselves in what is good for good governance and what is good for the county as a whole. So that to me seems like not a compelling argument for having or not having a policy. That's what they do. The second argument having to do with whether or not honorary types of acknowledgements would be allowed. My reading of the policy seems that that's allowed. But in the event that you were to conclude that that was not allowed, it would be very easy to amend the policy to make that clear. So then that brings us to the concerns that have already been raised by a couple of folks, which is that there have been statements made in public by some of you saying that you would like to advocate for a situation where the commission might say that certain laws should not be obeyed in this county, should not be enforced. And if that is the case, and that is what some of you are thinking might be accomplished by the rescission of this policy, I would like to very strongly encourage you to reconsider that. And the reason I say that should be obvious to any of you who are parents, which is, I think, all of us, which is that just because other counties do it doesn't mean we should do it. And if we were to do something like that, the obvious question becomes then, who decides? Who decides? We have a legislature, we have a structure in place, we have Congress, we have the courts, but we don't have a board of commissioners and a small group of local elected officials who decide what laws will be enforced and which ones are not. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Okay, hearing none, I call this meeting adjourned.